So self-compassion really has three components, and one of them is a mindfulness, basically acknowledging that you are suffering, that you're having some kind of difficulty and pain.
Welcome to the Secrets of Being podcast. I'm Dr. Dawn Earhart-Whitty, your guide on a transformative journey of personal development and discussions of universal truths. Join me and a panel of life coaches and spiritual leaders from around the world discussing how to handle some of life's greatest challenges. We will be sharing stories of love, faith, and inspiration with you, our faithful listeners, to live your happiest and most fulfilling life, full of purpose and passion for yourself, your families, and the world. We are here to be the change we wish to see. Let the conversation begin. Hello, and welcome to the Secrets of Being podcast. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Dianna Collier. Dianna is a certified positive psychology coach, a personal renewal group facilitator, a licensed specialist in school psychology, and a course facilitator with Wellbeing Institute. So she's got a lot of practice and education in psychology and personal development. So I cannot wait to have this conversation. Welcome, Dianna.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you here. And I always like to start my podcast off with a quote. And I took a quote from your website, which I really liked. And you said, as I talked it through, I noticed a shift. I realized I didn't actually need to push myself harder. I needed to give myself permission to be human. And I love that because we are so hard on ourselves sometimes. And when we give ourselves permission to be human and be imperfectly perfect, that really sets us up for success in our lives.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel very strongly, and this is a lesson I've had to learn, and I'm still learning over and over again, as you can tell probably from looking at my website, that permission to be human, to give yourself some kindness and some self-compassion is just one of the core principles that we should be using to guide our lives, I think.
Yeah, giving ourselves grace, you know. Mm-hmm. So you started off as a school psychologist. And so I would like you to tell us a little bit about your journey from where you began to how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I am definitely a case of lots of transitions and not a lot of direction, I think, at certain points in my life too. But initially, I went right out of like my undergraduate, getting my psychology bachelor's, and I jumped into my school psychology program. That was largely chosen because I was looking for something where there was a real direction. I thought I like kids, I'll go ahead and do it. Not a lot of insight into what was going to be like working day to day as a school psychologist. And I did, and I went out in the field, and I think by probably an outsider's perspective, I was very successful. I was doing well. But what I found is that as a young person, and I was super young, in my 20s going there, I didn't really have the tools to take care of myself in a situation that was quite high stress with very heavy caseloads and a lot of pressure. I don't know how many people know, but you're really involved with a lot of legal stuff too when you work as a school psychologist. And so that was a really intense experience. And as I did that, I found myself carrying that work home with me a lot. So like I didn't have my own biological children at the time, but I would call my students and my caseload, my kids, and they were like traveling with me as I was driving home, and I worked longer hours, and I began to feel just very stressed out. It took quite a toll on my body. And there became a point in time where I was married and my husband and I were wanting to start a family, but that just wasn't going to be possible with my level of stress that I had. I would say, and this is really where we're hitting the burnout, it wasn't a fertility problem. It was literally a stress problem, I will say. And it's a very different thing, I think, when you have a fertility problem, because once I kind of burnt out and I quit without much direction on what I was going to do, I did very easily conceive. So like the stress was gone. And then I had my daughters one after another. And I had thought going into all this, I'll figure things out, and what I found is that I approached mothering and taking care of small children with a lot of the same enthusiasm and passion and full in there that I did in school psychology. And I really still hadn't learned a lot of tools on how to take care of myself. So I found again and again, I'm circling back. And of course, it's not as easy as just quitting a job. When I have love my daughters and such, they cannot walk away from the kids, or I'm certainly not going to do that myself. And that's where I started to dig deep and think, okay, I need to figure out how to improve my situation. So that was kind of like, I would say, burnout round number two, you know. Uh,
Well, and I love that you brought up the fact that you were having fertility problems because you were so stressed.
yeah.
We've talked about this on my show before, where stress and outside our thoughts and the things that are going on in our head physically affect our bodies. And you were experiencing that with infertility.
Yes. And it was like, I mean, it was as much as like I quit my job. I spent a month doing yoga and I was bam, I was pregnant. Like it was just like so very obvious. Like, I know it's a different thing with many people with their fertility, but this was literally a stress in my body moment. Hmm.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So because you experience those burnouts, and again, you don't just walk away from your children.
Yes.
How did you get to the place where you started putting yourself in the mix of everybody you take care of?
Yes. Well, I've always held on to my passionate interest for psychology. So even though I wasn't sure what I was going to do, while I was a stay-at-home mom for a while, and I discovered positive psychology, and positive psychology being really just the science of what helps us flourish. The focus of psychology that is a little bit newer. It wasn't there when I was in my undergraduate, and I just was intrigued by it. I read the How Happiness, which is a wonderful book that's still out there. That's Sonia Luber-Mayersky, and she kind of outlines these different approaches to developing a life that is, um, full and rich. And so some of the stuff is stuff you may have heard of before, gratitude, et cetera, but it's bigger than that. And so I really got very excited, and I started little by little trying to incorporate it into my own life. And then I started my formal study of positive psychology. And that's where I found, Wellbeing Institute, and they had a certificate for positive psychology. And I jumped into this program and discovered self-compassion. Self-compassion was the number one, hands down, most meaningful practice, and really my starting point, and still like something that has been like key to my life. There's a lot more than that. That was just sort of the landing point there. And so that would be, I would say, the biggest.
And what does that look like for you? For somebody out there who's frazzled and they're burning out or burnt out, what kind of techniques or tips can you
Mm-hmm.
offer for them to incorporate in their own life, like slowly, but kind of,
Mm-hmm.
to get back to being at a place where they're flourishing and everybody around them is flourishing as well?
Absolutely. So self-compassion really has three components, and one of them is a mindfulness, basically acknowledging that you are suffering, that you're having some kind of difficulty and pain. The second part is common humanity. So recognizing this is part of being human. Everybody suffers. There's no way out of that one. It may not be exactly the same, but a lot of the times there are actually people who really are contending also with the same sort of things. And then the third component is a kindness to yourself. So self-kindness. So picking out words and talking to yourself the way you would a friend. And this is very different than the way that most of us talk to ourselves in our head. Most of us think that, criticism is the way to like go forward, to succeed. And you can actually look at that part of yourself with a little bit of warmth and love, and understanding that that part of you wants to keep you safe. And that's why you got the little critic, wants you to belong, wants you to be safe. But so there's three components. And My favorite tool is called the self-compassion break, and this is Kristen Neff stuff. I didn't make any of this up, but I will say that the self-compassion break is like it says, you're pausing at any moment that you are feeling some kind of stress, suffering, whatever it may be. And you literally can do this like it's portable. Like you could be anywhere and do it and adapt it. And there's sort of some steps to it, but it is just pausing, acknowledging kind of the pain you're in, um, and connecting with the sense of other people so you're not feeling isolated, and then picking out some kind words to share with yourself. And I could even lead one if you want me to at some point. But yes, uh,
I
that's
would
another
love that.
awesome.
I would
Uh-huh.
love that. But what you just said, I love that so much because I used to, and I still do a little bit like have that, beat yourself up in your head, like, oh my God, you're
Mm-hmm.
so stupid, or why did you do
Mm-hmm.
that?
Mm-hmm.
All those things. And I know a lot of people that do that. I think most people do that. Again,
Yeah.
biologically,
Mm-hmm.
we're built to do that to keep us safe and protect us, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I remember when my daughters were older and I thought, you would never speak this way to your children or a friend or someone you love.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you talk to yourself that way? And that was
Yes.
kind of my aha, was like, whoa, I didn't realize like how badly I was talking to myself until I
Mm-hmm.
framed it in that way. And then I was like, wow, I gotta stop that.
Yes. Well, and look, to be fair, I've been doing this and practicing this for 11 or so years, 12 years. And I catch myself all the time really talking to myself in not very nice ways. And that's okay because it truly is a practice. And little by little practice, I think you make those changes. And I love, your daughters. I think that my daughters were actually a big motivation for me to learn self-compassion and to start to try and model it for them, because I did not want them to, well, none of us, I think, want to think about our kids talking to themselves in that horrible way. So, mhm.
Yeah. So can you put us through a practice? Because I think again, I offer this podcast for people to improve their lives and help them get through
Mhm.
struggles and challenges because we all have something happening in our life. Maybe not all the time, but there are things that are common to the human condition, right? We're all
Yes.
going to experience some kind of grief or loss or sadness.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
how do you do this? Shared with us.
Okay, I'm excited to this because I actually really love doing this.
Oh,
So,
wonderful.
okay. Before we go into sort of like the guided practice, I will say that part of this practice, you're going to give yourself some kind of like a loving touch, some kind of a soothing touch. So, usually when I'm teaching some of this, I would say, let's play around first with what feels good to you today. So I can speak it out loud. And like you might try putting like your hands over your heart, just so you kind of know, like, how does that feel if you put your hands over your heart? And then you might try, say, taking the bottom one and fisting it, making it a little bit firmer, another one on top. And that's a different kind of feel, a little bit of a strong feel. And you can try putting your hands, cupping like your cheeks, see how that feels around your neck. You can give yourself a little hug, maybe even rub your hands up and down your arms. Put your hands on your belly. Um, this is something I do actually if I were on like a video call. So you can actually kind of just run your hands up and down your legs kind of gently, or run little circles, soothing touch that way. If you're out in public and you really want to be discreet, you could even just rub your hands together, maybe one on top of the other. And so for today, just, going into this practice, think about, choose one touch that you'll use when I guide you to do that. And then for the self-compassion break, we're practicing now. This is a little bit of an artificial situation, but it is the way you get used to it. So for this, I want you to, think about something, a challenge in your life, something that's causing you a struggle, causing you some pain. Don't pick something huge because we're practicing. So something just sort of a moderate difficulty. And, nobody's sharing what that is, so it's okay. You can keep it to yourself, but then take a moment and I often close my eyes if I'm just sort of practicing by myself. Out in the public, I wouldn't necessarily, but And think about this moment and feel in your body the discomfort when you're thinking about the situation. And then I want you to say, in whatever words feel right to you, this is painful, or this is a moment of suffering. This is really hard. If there's a feeling associated with it, then you can name that. Like, this is, I'm feeling really anxious right now, or I'm feeling really discouraged. Any kind of name that you can put on it. And you're noticing for this moment where you're feeling it in your body. Maybe you're feeling some tension in your shoulders, or maybe you feel butterflies in the stomach, or it could be anything, right? And then you say to yourself, suffering is part of life, right? That's the common humanity. Or lots of people are experiencing pain right now. Maybe it's even the same kind of pain that I'm experiencing. I'm not alone. This is what makes me connected to other people. We're actually connected in this suffering. And then think about what words you need to hear right now, and go ahead and take that positive kind of nice touch you found and go ahead and do that, whatever it may be, if it's hands over the heart or your cheeks or whatever it is, and feel how that feels in your body and what it's like to give yourself that loving feeling. And your body really actually doesn't react any differently, whether it's you giving yourself a hug or somebody else giving you a hug. So this is a very nice thing that you can always provide for yourself. And then what are those nice words you need to hear? You could say, hey, you're trying the best you can. Oh, honey, I gotcha. You can, give yourself those little, whatever feels right to you. I know this is hard right now, but you're going to get through this. And if this often feels really hard for people, and so you might want to think about, once again, like, what would you say to a good friend who's going through the same situation as you? Like, you know, you're really an amazing person. This is just a hard moment for you. It could be anything. And then sit there with that kindness and notice how it changes the feelings in your body. When you can imagine that, yes, you're having a hard time, other people are having it right now, you're really not isolated in this, and to treat yourself with some kindness. And then just breathe, take some deep breaths, there. Maybe 3 breaths will do before we transition out. And that's sort of, that is the basic crux then of the self-compassion break and how you apply it. And I've done these, like when I first was practicing them, a lot of them were done in the bathroom. Like my daughter was much younger. One of my daughters would be yelling or whatever, very upset with me for, I'm sure, something very important. And I would, take my moment, and I would do that for myself. And it really shifted how I was able to return then as a parent. I didn't get triggered as much. I was, and that's not exactly why you do it. You don't do it for any particular reason, but I can say that it does set you up to then be in a better space to actually react.
Yeah, and show up as your best self in the situation.
Yes.
Right. And that isn't that what we want? And I know I have not always shown up as my best self, especially when I was raising. My girls are 16 months apart. And so, the typical sibling rivalry, she's wearing my shirt and, those things, right? Where you're just like, I'm trying to cook dinner and get homework done and get baths and get into bed. And you guys are being ridiculous. So, sometimes I might have yelled and said, knock it off. Whereas I would prefer not to show up like that because I'm the adult,
Yes.
right? But again, we're human, and then give myself the grace to say, you know what, you're human. They were being crazy.
Yeah.
But to be able to calm yourself down and to show up as your best self, that's beautiful for you and then for everybody that's around you.
Yes, absolutely. And I will say, like, I won't give too many specifics. I didn't ask permission for my daughter, but I just about like squealed with incredible, or actually I probably did squeal with happiness when she told me an example of how she was kind of almost teaching some of her friends in college, like when they're feeling lonely, how they're not, they're not just alone and there are these other people that could help. And she went through all these lovely things that she said. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're showing me self-compassion and showing that. And she's like, yeah, I don't always talk that way. Fair. None of us are like that. But these are great things to then pass along to our kids. And yeah. And it's just like we all have these, we're always going to have these moments. A lot of the people I work with now also are not necessarily parents. They're looking for new jobs or they're changing directions. Well, maybe they get ghosted by somebody who they just did an interview with, or it's really tricky in the job market. These are great times to then give ourselves self-compassion. It's not a great time to beat yourself up. So
yeah, and I also in those situations where you get rejected, you didn't get the job, you didn't get the relationship, whatever it is, I truly believe this, so I tell myself this, and as I'm going through anything, what's meant for you will always find you. And if it's the universe's way of redirecting us to something that is higher for our highest and greatest good. So we might think this is the thing that we really, really want, but maybe, and I've seen this meme that has, my plan and it's one flower and then God's plan and there's a whole bouquet. So sometimes we think we want what we want, but there's something better waiting for us. So everything is directing us for our highest and greatest good. And I tell myself that. I truly believe that. And, whether I'm right or I'm wrong, it makes the journey easier and better and more peaceful for me and more hopeful too.
Yes.
And you live with less disappointment.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I think that's the interesting thing. So like self-compassion just builds that hope and it widens your perspective because you're talking about just a bigger, wider perspective, which is quite beautiful, really. And then every little moment in between has got its place. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I remember like before I had this mindset, again, back when I wish I had this mindset while I was raising my children. I think I would have been a better mother. But you learn it when you learn it, right?
Yes.
And at least I learned it, right? So but I just feel like I would have had some of those things that just drove me crazy or made me angry or whatever would have been like, you know what? That's not a big deal. It's okay. It's going to get better. Everything's working out. It would have made the journey just so much more peaceful for me.
Yeah. And, I didn't use these tools or discover them truly until my kids were, more like, close to one of them middle school, the other one like older elementary. It's okay. And I do feel like it decreased my number of times that I was just screaming or whatever, probably. And they would probably say that I've screwed up a whole bunch too. And like, I think that's the thing is like, that's okay too. Like I can live with that. And that's also what I want my girls to know. Like, it's okay to have those mistakes. That's part of being human. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us too.
Well, and that goes back to the quote that I wrote from your website, giving yourself permission to be human. We are human. We are here having a human experience. And so we're gonna be human. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's, do we learn something from the things that we do that we're like, that wasn't my best self. I don't want to do that again. What do we take away from those situations? Nobody is perfect. And I think my older daughter is a perfectionist and my younger daughter is not, but she would always make fun of my older daughter, say nobody has to be perfect, and she would just like chant this over and over again, and it kind of made my older daughter irritated. But I still hear that in my head. But it's true, nobody has to be perfect, because what is perfect? What is perfect to you might look very different than what is perfect to me. So again, giving ourselves that permission to be human and learn from every experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Perfection is such a myth. And I think that it's a very dangerous myth in the world of parenting. And that's probably why and that's where I came at it initially, even though I work, with a lot of different situations besides parenting now. But perfection is just not real. It doesn't mean anything.
That's absolutely, thank you. I want you to say that again. Perfection is not real. It's not
Perfection
real.
is not real.
So I
Yeah.
love that. Maybe when you're making a circle, then maybe that is when perfection is important. But other than that, being human, there is no such thing because again,
Okay. Yeah, that's
you
right. Love that. Love that. No perfect human. Um, yeah. And really no perfect situation. It's like, I think we've, kind of touched on it. It's like sometimes you don't know what beauty will come out of a situation that is, hard. And that's not to say that that situation is always okay, but it's not that black and white, it really isn't.
yeah, I this conversation is so good. I think you've given people so many tools and the one thing I wanted to address before we try to wrap it up here a little bit is you were saying, okay, one of the things like, positive psychology and, trying to look at the bright side and all those things doesn't mean you dismiss the pain, the hurt, the sorrow and
Yeah.
the sadness, because you cannot gloss over, you've got to feel your feelings. And I really wanted to tap on that because I think that's very important. We can't, what is that, bypassing? You can't bypass those things.
Right. Yes, that no, that's so I'm so glad you highlighted that, Dawn. That is, I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions is that it's just sort of a happy positivity and that people are happy don't have these negative, or I'm saying negative in quotes, these unpleasant feelings, but that's just not true. We are created to have a huge array of feelings that includes ones that aren't as much fun to feel, the sadness, the anger, maybe, whatever it may be. And feeling those feelings is actually part of emotional health, along with then moving towards resilience and looking for, moving towards positivity. But ultimately, you really can't move towards an authentic positivity and resilience unless you can pause with and let those not very fun feelings have their space. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And those things get trapped inside of our nervous system if we don't
Mm-hmm.
let them out. And I don't know how many times you've talked to somebody and they start crying and they apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. And it's like, no,
Yes.
don't apologize. You are feeling a human emotion. You are
Mm-hmm.
supposed to feel when you cry, you're releasing cortisol. Like there's physical things happening in your body. So
Mm-hmm.
we're given those tools. I mean, it's a tool, right? We're given
Yeah.
those human emotions to experience them, but not sit and dwell on them, right? Experience them,
Mm-hmm.
feel them as much as
Mm-hmm.
you need to feel them, and then comfort yourself and give yourself the compassion and, move forward and take
Yes.
whatever you need to take from that experience away with you.
Yes, absolutely. And that I think that really is the key. And of course there are times like if there are times you're finding yourself really stuck in a ruminating or stuck in a negative, those are the times where yeah, you seek maybe some additional therapeutic help. And that's I'm not saying that being stuck in emotion is normal, but I would say but experiencing, you know, their nerves and everything. I mean, like I see it all the time in the coaching session and people might be like, I'm sorry, I know this isn't therapy. And I'm like, no, it's okay because having some normal emotions when you're trying to do things that are new and potentially scary and pushing out of your comfort zone, that's part of being human. That's not a disorder. That's just part of being human. So yeah, there's space
No,
for
I love
that.
I love that you said that because I think that we label a lot of human conditions as disordered and we think, oh, there's something wrong with me. I must have this, that, or the other. And it's like, you know what? Maybe you're just human and you're just having a normal human reaction to things that are happening in your life. So, give
Mm-hmm.
yourself some grace. Again, back to giving yourself grace, I think is, one of the things that I've learned to do. And again, I'm not perfect at it. Nobody's perfect
Mm-hmm.
because what is
Yeah,
perfect? A circle.
right. That's right.
Well,
Yes.
Dianna, you are absolutely wonderful, wonderful. I'm so grateful that we connected. I love what you're doing in the world. I would love for you to tell people where they can find you and
Mm-hmm.
also leave people with one piece of information, one nugget that you would like them to take away from today's podcast.
Okay. Well, you can probably easiest way to find me is on my website, which is Dianna with two N's. So there's the tricky bit, DiannaCollier.com. And I also have a newsletter that you can sign up for called The Positive Pull, and you can find that there. And I'm also happy to connect with people on social media. But I think, yeah, website's probably the best place to find me for sure. Ooh, and the nugget, the takeaway. Gosh, to be honest, this is just like what the past couple of weeks have like reinforced to me over and over again is that like there, if you could just be a little bit courageous in listening to those feelings that don't feel super in your life, they will kind of they can pass away. Like if you can hold them tenderly. And maybe you're also connecting with friends or therapists or coach or whoever it may be. But if you can give them that little bit of love and space, then a lot of times they will move through and you will move through. And that's as perfect as it gets. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
Oh,
Give
thank you.
yourself some love. Mhm.
That's wonderful, Dianna. Thank you. I think everything that you've said today is going to benefit somebody somewhere out there that is beating themselves up and they shouldn't be. So thank you
Mhm.
so much. And thank you for joining the Secrets of Being. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Secrets of Being podcast. We appreciate your time and support. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with more inspiring content. For further inspiration, visit thesecretsofbeing.com and join our community. Until next time, stay inspired and keep unlocking the secrets of being.